Welcome to the Humanities Team podcast with me, Steve Farrell. Humanities Team is an international spiritual movement whose purpose is to communicate and demonstrate the timeless truth that we are all one, with the divine and all life, caring for each other and the world we share, so that people's actions reflect this profound understanding within our generation. We believe that living this truth is essential to resolving the most chronic and acute world challenges and vital to creating a flourishing world of peace, harmony, and happiness. We offer transformative education programs in personal and spiritual development, and we host an annual event called Global Oneness Day. Similar to Earth Day, which galvanized the global environmental movement, Global Oneness Day has become a catalyst for spiritual activism and an integral part of the present-day global oneness movement, which represents a profound new paradigm in human culture. Humanities Team is the only global nonprofit organization working in transformational education. Since we are a nonprofit, there is no focus on growing profits or satisfying shareholders, and 100% of all revenue goes toward our work supporting conscious evolution, planetary awakening, and flourishing at every level of life. If you'd like to learn more about us or want to support our mission directly through donation or volunteering some of your time, please visit us online at humanitiesteam.org. And lastly, if you enjoyed this podcast, we'd be grateful if you'd leave us a review.
The theme of our program is on the edge of astounding scientific discovery that is changing everything. And boy, this is really what we're about to talk about here. We are right on the edge of astounding scientific discovery. If you know a little bit about Galileo and some of these scientists from these last 500, 1,000 years and how they revealed a completely different universe than what we thought was here present, well, guess what? We're right there here on the verge of a similar announcement, and it's Nassim Haramein and his team that's bringing forward that research. We're going to talk about it here during the hour. So let me give Nassim a proper introduction, and then he and I are just going to jump right in to talk about his research and a program that Nassim and Gregg Braden and Humanities Team have created that you can actually watch right now. So let me introduce Nassim properly here. Nassim Haramein has spent the past 30 years researching connections in physics, mathematics, geometry, cosmology, quantum mechanics, biology and chemistry, anthropology, archaeology, leading him to groundbreaking theories, published papers, and patented inventions in the field of unified physics, which are now gaining worldwide recognition and acceptance. He serves as president of Taurus Tech, Arc Crystal, and Resonance Foundation, Science Foundation, established for the research, development, and distribution of his technology. The Connected Universe, a feature-length documentary film released in 2016 and narrated by Sir Patrick Stewart, was produced based on Haramein's discoveries and their potential impact on generations to come. Haramein speaks regularly to audiences worldwide and continues to pursue his groundbreaking research. And again, a big welcome to the program, Nassim. It's great to have you here with us today.
Thank you. It's great to be with you guys. I'm always happy to discuss all these amazing things all together.
Yes, wow.
And it was great that Sir Patrick Stewart narrate that movie, having Captain Picard, lead where no man has gone before, was where no person has gone before, was exciting.
Quite a moment.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned, so this was a while back. Now, we are on the verge of just an astounding revealing of research. It's Nassim's research. We're going to actually start out talking about it here. And Nassim, do you want to, I call it, myself, I'm not a scientist, but as I have worked with Nassim and Gregg Braden, the way I look at this is Einstein, you may know, went to his grave working on a unified field theory, and he couldn't quite get there. Well, guess what? Nassim and his team are taking us there. with all of the astounding implications of this and some. So, Nassim, is that a decent general framing here? Do you want to talk a little about your research?
Yeah, I'm super excited. I've written multiple papers in the last 35 years of research, and they all built on each other in certain ways. In 2012, I wrote a paper, I think, that was pivotal, that finally kind of like rounded up and explicitly and formally describe the information flow that produces the material world, the forces, and so on. And although it was really kind of tentative, it was and not explored in its depth, it was right away able to produce very, very interesting results, like amazing, predictions. And one of them being the radius of the proton, which is really, really an important value in physics because it's the nuclei of atoms. It's the part that has most of the mass, and it's the part that is really like at the heart of the matter, if I may say. And it predicted a radius that was it gave the correct mass, the correct forces, the correct velocities, and all this. But when I was using the equation, which I called the holographic mass solution, it generated a radius that was a little strange. It was 4% smaller than the standard model radius, and the measurements of the time. So it was startling because 4% might not sound like a lot, but it is. In quantum theory, values that are fundamental, like constants and the radius of the electron, things like that, mass of the electron, so on, are known to very high level of accuracy. In some cases, to 10 to the minus 13 level of accuracy, that is 13 numbers after the period, are known. And so to be 4% off was like being in another universe. Although considering that the theory and the equations were able to predict masses of black holes and cosmological events, and so on, like the radius of the universe and so on, I was pretty confident that it was correct. I was just thinking maybe it's not as accurate when I get down to the quantum level, but because it was giving very accurate values for quantum forces as well, I assumed that it was actually completely accurate. And I made a prediction in that paper that it would probably come out when we measured the radius of the proton more precisely. And unbeknown to me, I published in 2012, in December of 2012, unbeknown to me, there was a team in Switzerland that was just that had been working on measuring the radius of the proton more precisely. To make a long story short, they measured the value I predicted. I was within 1 sigma, that is, I was within the margin of error of their experiment. These are the kind of thing that confirms theories in history. And then, eventually that was repeated many, many times. And in 2018, the co-data value, that is the standard value for all constants in physics, was changed for the radius of the proton. And the error that was done earlier is that the quantum standard model adjustment they were doing with the standard model values needed to be removed to actually get the correct value. And so really supporting the research. And so I'm telling you this because what I'm excited about right now is that I was able to, with the help of Dr. Olivier Alérol, which is a physicist in France, that works with us, here in the US, and I was able to extend this formalism to all forces, all scales, and all constants in physics, like, so that it predicts not just one constant, which would be already remarkable, but it predicts all constants in physics and show the relationship with the constants and the scales and the forces in a comprehensive understanding of our universe. And that's just amazing. It's mind-blowing. It makes me sing every day.
Yeah, it is mind-blowing. Let me also, I'm going to just share that in the way I understand this. Tell me if I'm off on any of this, Nassim. Again, I'm not a scientist, but so this research that Nassim's team is doing, it addresses everything from quantum scales, so the smallest objects, to cosmological objects. So I'm going to just stop on each of these points. On this, current physics is just there's one set of science for larger objects, and there's another set of science for smaller objects, and there's not an intersection. Nassim's research addresses it all, from the smallest to the largest objects. Then,
yeah,
as he's mentioning,
Steve.
Yeah,
I launched into this whole thing and I forgot about the basics. Yeah, sorry. So yeah, that's good. Yes.
And then he's bringing in cosmic constants. So these cosmic constants account for everything out in the universe. There's nothing that's left out. What's more, current physics is addressing the material world. Now, Nassim's research is addressing the material and the non-material, or physical and non-physical world. So sentient beings are in this. It's accounting for the evolution of the universe. In fact, in my understanding, Nassim's research says the universe is alive, it's conscious, it's intelligent, and this field, which is the universe, is in you. So, I mean, on any one of these things I'm addressing, we could like stop and talk about the stunning and astounding implications. When you try and put all of this together, it's mind-blowing.
Yeah, this is like we've got a few thousand equations and a 200 pages paper right now that will be reduced to, something we can publish at Nature or whatever. But like what I'm like, so, but although there's all this complexity, and although what you just described seems unrelated, right? Actually, it just shows that there's one thing. There's only one thing in the universe, meaning that matter and consciousness are not separated. There's, matter and like biology and physics, right? Matter, like what we call inert matter, and biology are not separated, that one leads to the other. And basically, this one thing that makes up everything is a flow of information, a field of energy. So in physics, information and energy have an equivalence, or entropy. And there is, and I've identified what I've called a Planck plasma, basically a fluid dynamic. You could think of it as a gas, but it's not really a gas. It has different phases. And so it can be a super fluid, it can be a super solid, it can be a super fluid, and then it can be a gas. So it can go through phase transitions. And this field is at the source. So you could think of it as like the little fluctuations of fluctuation of this field as like a field of information. And this field of information is flowing through all the scales. And it's the source of all of these scales. So the field of information can be chaotic in region, but where that field spins into little vortices, because there's a gradient there, then they make particles, or they make a star, or they make a galaxy, or they make a universe, or they make a multiverse, and so on. And as the flow of this information goes through these different scales, they make forces, they produce forces. And these are the forces that we see as the strong force, the weak force, the gravitational force, and the electromagnetic force. And so, all this, I want to make sure your viewer understand, I'm talking formally, meaning this is now in this paper formally explicited and clearly explicited, so that we understand. And of course, there's a sub-Planckian field that feeds the Planckian field, and the sub-Planckian field that feeds that. So it's a fractal nature of information in space. And the crazy part is that eventually, the amazing part is that eventually this information flow produce coherent behaviors at all the scales that eventually create coherent behaviors that make cells, and these cells produce coherent behaviors of information transfer, right? The cells have to communicate and all this, that eventually makes a body and biology, and this biological dynamics eventually have enough information flow through them, information feedback flow through them, that they become self-aware, and now you have consciousness. And so, yeah.
Yeah, and the implications, we're gonna get to the implications of this. I'll just share again, though, it's astounding. This research, you could say it turns the world upside down. I'd say it turns the world right side up, because what we've been about in Humanities Team for 18 years, we're a global nonprofit organization, is this whole ancient truth, this that we are all one, right? And now as Nassim was just sharing, that's actually when we come to the center of what this means. It's that we are actually all one. So science we now are standing on a platform. We could call it a solid foundation. We could call it cement platform, where science is saying this is true. What the mystics have shared over millennia, this ancient truth, this timeless truth that we're all one. Science is saying this is true. So now, and the implications for us individually are astounding. We're going to get to some here in just a moment. We're going to go to some clips. Before we do, I want to share, though, so Gregg Braden and Nassim Haramein and Humanities Team, we created a program called Secret Scientific Discoveries. If you go to secretscientificdiscoveries.com, you can register for the program. There's a free series. We just unveiled Gregg's last night, and Nassim's is next Tuesday. When you go to secretscientificdiscoveries.com and register, leave your name and email address, you'll be able to immediately watch Gregg's program, and you'll be invited to the program Tuesday night when we unveil for the very first time Nassim's program. So let's go to the first video clip here, Jim, and then Nassim and I are going to come back and talk about it. In this program, we've talked about, Gregg Braden has shared that there are many potential applications for the new physics and biology, including in energy, space travel, medical, computers, healing of trauma, and so much more. Can you help us vision some of this, or understand what examples of this might be?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the implications of understanding the fundamental physics of this fundamental field have, very large implications in many fields, like from even temporal violation, as we were talking about, like meaning being able to predict things in times, and so on, which are not precluded from Einstein field equation neither, so people understand. But as well, energy production and gravity control and health implications are remarkable, tremendous. We're talking about almost infinite amount of energy available in every point. or we're talking about being able to control gravitational fields, just as we've built a whole civilization in the industrial era based on controlling electromagnetic field, which we succeeded in doing very well, and produced the civilization we have today, where we're transferring data over electromagnetic waves and we're using electricity and all this stuff. Well, now the next step for humanity is to control the gravitational field. This could not be possible because we didn't have a fundamental analytical solution to the gravitational constant, meaning we didn't understand gravity at its most fundamental level. Einstein told us that it was the curvature of space-time, but he didn't tell us what space-time was made of. And so now we're discovering that actually space-time is a fluctuation of the quantum field, like a plasma. It's a structure, and that structure, yes, when it curves, it produces gravity, which is what Einstein found. But that is a real structure. It does produce real effect. We call it gravity. So it's not just a conceptual thing. Now we're actually understanding the mechanics of this, and it's giving the right solution for the mass and for the electromagnetic field and for charge and all this. So all of a sudden we understand where these things come from, forces, and now we can even imagine that using this technology we could extract matter directly from space. That is, the replicator, it becomes possible. We're talking about opening the mouth of wormholes. We're talking about warp drive. We're talking about, very, very advanced technology can emerge from this. And I assure you that this is not, so fringe, meaning like there is a section at NASA, Sonny White works in it, Dr. Sonny White works in it, and, they've been trying to make a warp drive for multiple decades using quantum vacuum fluctuations. So this is not so far out. It's just that now I've been able to solve the equations in the standard model of physics with no free parameters, all from first principle, describing, these scales and these constants, and that gives us the roadmap for the development of those technologies.
All right, so that's a little, it's a small section from this program that Nassim and I do, that we're broadcasting on Tuesday night beginning at 5 p.m. Pacific. That's 8 Eastern, and again, secretscientificdiscoveries.com, and you can register for that program. Nassim, the applications for this research are just, where does it start and where does it end? I mean, I know where it's, there's a lot of things we can share here, and I'm not even sure we could get to where it ends. It's just, there's so much here, isn't there?
Right. I mean, it's hard to visualize or even predict the all of the implications of this, and like you said, it's a foundation that we will build on. And it's funny you use that terminology of cement, because that's exactly what Olivier and I, when we were looking at the equations a few days ago, and we were seeing that, like, now that we have this unification of physics, all the constants are in relationship, like constants that didn't have a relationship before. The gravitational constant and the Rydberg constant, and alpha and mu and all these constants of physics. And we were like looking at all the links between them, and it was so strong, so amazing, so beautiful. And interestingly, when we drew the equations that made the links, when we drew the relationships, it started to make geometry that resembled ancient symbols. But what was amazing is that it was like that was exactly my statement. It's like cement. You can't move it anymore. It's so self-consistent, meaning like every point, is like very highly precise. So any changes you do would tweak everything and everything would start falling apart. It has to be all exactly what it is in order for everything to come together. So, with this level of, consistency and interaction that it's correct, but as well, it's just like such a strong foundation. It's so well cemented together, and it's beautiful, meaning like it's beautiful both in the mathematical concept of beauty, which is a concept that is in science, but it's beautiful most importantly in the concept of it's like a flower that opens and you get this amazing beauty emerging that leads you like all kinds of ways to, for instance, understanding empirical values that we have, like Ohm's law and other things, that we don't necessarily know where they come from, right? We just empirically measure them. And then all of a sudden those things get pulled in and conservation laws get pulled in. So now you understand why conservation is occurring in the universe. But as well, the beauty as well is that it has this this kind of like aura of impossible. So that like you can visualize the universe and the world around you as literally a fluid structure that is continuously flowing, because we have a tendency to think that atoms are like these little billiard balls that are like just kind of like these little particles, but actually when you look closely you realize atoms are absolutely not like billiard balls. Protons are absolutely, all we know is that in that region of space there's a charge that repels other charge, an electrostatic charge, and that that region of space is segregated. But basically what you discover is that it's all like a fluid, and out of these equations that are completely unrelated to fluid dynamics equation, out comes the Navier-Stokes equations, which are the fluid dynamics equation, and so on. And so this whole thing, all of a sudden, you start to feel the flow of creation, and not only you start to feel it, but now you have the details of it. Like, for instance, the dynamics of this flow, like the toroidal dynamics of this flow, and because the equation are giving you the details, meaning you're solving the equation, and if you don't solve them with the correct flow, you don't get the right answer. So you have to find the flow, how it's flowing, and so it's telling you exactly how the universe flow, and it just kind of blows your mind.
So Nassim and his research team share. I know all this because Gregg Braden and myself and our team were down in Nassim's lab there in San Clemente for a while, and got to sit down with him and his team to really deeply understand this. It's astounding. So one of the ways it can be framed is, in fact, that Nassim's team frames it as a user's guide or a map to the whole universe. In a sense, we're like unlocking the secrets to the whole universe as we consider our own lives and how we live collectively on the planet, and for that matter, how the cosmos lives. It's that big. Last night, one of the things Gregg Braden and I were discussing relating to this is that, of course, we live right now in this time where there's so much uncertainty, right? With COVID and polarity in politics, and it's like, what is the truth, in anything? Because it breaks out splinters right and it splinters left, and it's hard to discern what is the truth. Well, so this cement platform thing. So how cool is this? We're now can stand on this cement platform that is looking straight at ultimate reality and describing what it is, how it works, and it's saying that all of what this universe is lives at what we could call it the field, that it lives in you. So now things like clairvoyance, claircognizance. Yeah, go ahead, Nassim.
Yeah, because you're made of atoms, and these atoms are made out of that field. So like it's literally, it's not a metaphor to say that it lives in you. You know, it's literally you are made out of that stuff. Every atom you're made of, and it's flowing. You know, we have a tendency to see ourselves as this static being because we our perception at our scale is so vastly deceiving compared to what's happening at the smaller scale. So for instance, your body is made of about 50 to 100 trillion atoms, cells. I mean, and that's a lot of cells. You know, I mean, already cells are small. And the fact that they all know what to do is remarkable. Like that they, you know, that your heart cells don't start making liver cells and your liver cells don't start making heart cells, like, you know, which would produce a really bad day for you if that happened, because they're dividing at 1 million cells a second, right? And each cell is made of about 100 trillion atoms. So it's 100 trillion multiplied by 100 trillion that you're made of stuff. So it's non-trivial, you know. It's like galaxies, right? It's non-trivial amount of dynamics, and these things are way smaller, because 100 trillion atoms in a cell is small, right? The proton is even much smaller, and then, you know, the Planck scale is like billions and trillions of times smaller, so that if I took a proton and I grew it so it was a grain of sand, then if I took a Planck and I grew it so it was a grain of sand, then the proton would have a diameter of about 40 trillion kilometers, like the distance between the sun and Alpha Centauri. So, you know, and this dynamic is happening inside you, like constantly, and you're not static. You're throwing stuff out like constantly. You're burning at about 100 Fahrenheit, you know, close to 100 Fahrenheit. And if this system gets confused, if it did, and all of a sudden your temperature went up a few degrees or went down a few degrees, you're having a really bad day. So it's in a state of very high dynamical equilibrium, and it's maintaining. It's like their blood pH as well. You know, your blood pH, if it changes by 0.1, you're not feeling so great. If it's changed by 0.2, you're extremely ill. If it changes by 0.3, you're done, right? Your cells are decohering. The 100 trillion multiplied by the 100 trillion atoms that you're made of are out of there, right? So, you know, it's an amazing thing, and and so you're the flow. You're literally redoing yourself. It's redoing itself at a much lower rate than the rest, you know, like the Planck field, but you're redoing yourself. So there's entropy, right, across the scale. And at our scale, the redoing is occurring at about the rate of 1 million cells every second. And so you're constantly changing. You're constantly this flow of information that's transforming you, and you're constantly gathering information, right, through your senses. So you can think of it as the universe learning about itself through you.
Yeah. So let me, and then in my layman's terms, as I take all this in, so what I get from this is we talk about just the personal implications. So first, Nassim brought in oneness, so the connection of the universe, that we are deeply, we think of our family, it's me and, well, who's your family? It's me and my wife and my 2 kids. Well, guess what? Well, we can think of it that way if we want, but I mean, what this research is saying, no, you are deeply, deeply connected to every person, the planet, all life, not only on this planet, but the whole of the cosmos. So, and that's just connection. Then we go to wisdom. Well, I brought in clairvoyance. So that's what Dr. Larry Dawsey uses this term, non-local wisdom. Well, Nassim is saying, yeah, of course, we're one. So we can access, non-local wisdom from the whole cosmos. And then I'll even bring in the power dimension the power of the universe. If the field lives in you, connection and wisdom, well, guess what? The power of the universe does too, especially where it's very pure, where we're acting on behalf of the whole, where the cell is a white blood cell supporting the body, or it's an organ that's supporting the body, and where the universe feels into that. And I'm not sure, Nassim can comment on this, but this is my own interpretation, that where I'm acting on behalf of the whole is lending me its power. That's how it feels to me. Now, other implications though, self-healing, abundant energy, new economy, abundant agriculture, making wars obsolete. So, when we were saying, what are the implications? And we were saying, oh my God, we can talk about where it starts, but we can't even get to where it ends, because the implications are just mind-blowing here.
Yeah, it's remarkable. You were talking about nonlinear access to information, right? Meaning that you have access to more than just the information that's around you that you can reach or touch or see. And clearly these mathematics show that all particles are entangled at the Planck scale, and that the entanglement is, we measure it in the laboratory. It's not something that theory in the 40s and 50s and 60s and so on kind of like elucidated from quantum theory, but that was never measured. This is something that's measured. We know particles can be entangled. In fact, we've been able to now entangle much larger objects than particles. Like you can entangle diamonds in a laboratory so that you can wiggle this diamond over here with a laser, and the diamond across the laboratory is vibrating as if it was being hit by the laser itself. And we've been able to transfer bits of information now from a satellite to the ground in a nonlinear fashion using entanglement, which is instantaneous. In fact, in these equations, we've shown actually that although it appears instantaneous to us, it's not quite instantaneous. It's just extremely fast. We were able to calculate the speed of what we call the refresh rate of the universe. So imagine all the particles are entangled and the information is flowing right through all of the scales of the universe, because the universe has to know what it's doing, so it's able to cohere things, right? It has to communicate, and so if that was happening at the speed of light, we'd be in deep doo-doo. It would be really bad, because it's like it takes billions of years for light to go across the universe. So the information would never get there. And like the universe would be really slow at changing, right? It would be like, everything would be like, whoa. But entanglement is instantaneous in the standard model because they don't really have the mechanics for it. But as you write this unified field theory, all of a sudden entanglement becomes clear. And is just that the universe is in resonance and it's communicating at the sub-Planckian level. And when you calculate that, the information is moving across the universe. And I call it as well the speed of thoughts, the speed of thoughts of the universe. And it's happening at approximately 10 to the 40th times faster than the speed of light. So that, the speed of light is about 10 to the 10, so that you're going at 10 to the 50th, and this thing, and so that the speed of light would look like a brick wall. It would look like it's not moving, right? To you, if you were going at the speed of thoughts, if you're going at the speed, the speed of light would be like really slow. And so while the speed of light would transfer a bit of information across the universe in billions of years, at the speed of the sub-Planck, which is moving through the Planckian wormholes, the speed of refresh across the universe is 10 to the minus 23 seconds, right? Which is a really interesting number. That's really, 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 really fast, right? Like there's no way we would think it's instantaneous, of course, but it's an interesting value as well, because it's the value of rotation of a proton, but that's another thing. So this is really powerful as well when these equations come out and you realize that you're actually calculating the speed at which the universe refresh, or the speed at which the universe thinks or absorb information and then play on it. So now you start to get the feeling that, like, as you're thinking and interpreting the world, the universe is feeding you back through the refresh rate, your experiences, and then you interpret them again, and now you get the feed-forward feedback dynamics that we're all doing. But you got to remember, you're not just doing it individually, you're doing it with the whole of everything, like all of humanity, all of the material world, everything is feeding back in this incredible dynamics of creation that are just mind-blowing.
So we're coming to you live. So I'm here in Boulder, Colorado. Steve Farrell with Humanities Team. Nassim Haramein's coming to you live from his laboratory there in Southern California, San Clemente. So there are lots of comments and questions here. Thank you, viewers. Humanities Stream Plus members are here with us. We're going to even invite them to come on screen here in a minute. But let me share that, again, there's so much that we're covering. If you want to get a distillation of a lot of this, secretscientificdiscoveries.com. You'll get the program we unveiled last night with Gregg Braden. That broadcast will come to you right away. And then Nassim's broadcast is Tuesday, this coming Tuesday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. You'll be invited to come to that as well, where we break all of this down and get into the science, the implications, including the personal implications. By the way, as Nassim was going over this whole speed of light thing, one of the implications there, people would wonder, extraterrestrials and UFOs are getting now even mainstream attention. And if the speed of light is as fast as we can go, well then, how does it work? Because these people would be dead 10 times over before they got to the planet. But now this research, here's another implication. You heard Nassim just share about how that the speed of light is like a brick wall, right? It's not fast at all, but he's bringing in the science that speaks to what the real possibility is, which now explains this whole extraterrestrial thing. So just one more implication here. Let me come to some of the comments from Humanities Stream members that are here with us. So Cheryl says, I'm kind of a physics science dummy. I never knew there were all these particles in the universe. How was that discovered? So Nassim, Cheryl is just kind of walking in. I'm sure when you talk to audiences, as you do all over the world, you get questions like this. That's a big question, yes. Which is why you have so many scientists and mathematics researchers there with you on site. But
right. Well, there is definitely evidence of particles, you know, we know of protons, electrons, we know of subatomic particles because we've built these huge colliders that crashes protons together and get smaller particles. We have a whole zoo of particles actually that have come out in the standard model. You know, I could comment on that, but I'm going to skip. But there is a lot of evidence that these particles are actually emerging from this fundamental field, both in the standard model, meaning it's just not been interpreted appropriately in the standard model, but you know, they have a Higgs field and so on, which is kind of because the math has kind of like taking turns and not quite gelled together properly. But basically, you can and you can imagine that. So people might say, "Well, wait, what is he talking about? Like, a field? Does he mean like a field in the space?" And that's exactly what I mean. And then people say, well, if it's so dense with particles, why can't I feel it? How do you know, what do you mean? And it's like this, you know, the electromagnetic field is in the field all around you, meaning it's all around you right now. There's infrared, ultraviolet, there's background radiation from the galaxy, there's like background radiation from the universe, there's all kinds of stuff. There's radio waves with the football game, and you know, the music and all this that you can tune in. If you have a little crystal in a little box, then you can hear the music come out. Well, that's all in the field around you, and you don't know it's there unless you measure it. Well, this is a field that is like, you know, massively at scales, massively smaller than anything you can experience directly at frequencies that are way higher than even like the electromagnetic field that we understand or that we know of. So basically, you know, it's translucent to us, it's transparent to us, we don't know it's there, and that's why it's taken so long to discover it, although it was predicted almost 100 years ago by quantum field theory, and by other by Einstein in some ways with relativity, where he described gravity as a result of space curving, but didn't say what space was made of, right? So it kind of like missed the point in some ways, although it was a really important discovery to realize that gravity wasn't like a force that was coming from the object. But what this is pushing the boundary even further and saying, actually, the space and the stuff that's not the space that we call matter is still the space because it's made out of that field that makes up the space. So when it's in the space, it's more incoherent, right? We could call it a Fermi phase for people that are more technical. And when it's matter, it's like a Bose phase where it's coherent, because it's spinning in that region. So all the little particles are all lined up and they're all moving together, you know, coherently. And then you think there's something like, but it's still the space. It's still the field. So it's one thing.
Yeah, boy, thank you, Nassim. There's a lot here. In fact, Drew asked the question, he says, how can those of us who want to know more and fully understand the repercussions of this information? So a couple things, Drew. One, the secretscientificdiscoveries.com. This is this brand new program here that Nassim Haramein, Gregg Braden, and Humanities team have created to sign up, and you'll get these 2 60-minute broadcasts as well. Nassim's organization, Nassim Resonance.com. What website can they go to really fully understand your science?
Yeah, people can go and take a free course on our platform as well, called the Resonance Science Foundation. So resonancescience.org. and they can register for a free course, and you will see, 7 modules that describe all this, and that goes through in a layman's term. And there's an 8th module that's about to be launched in the next few months when we publish the paper that will explain that part. That's a lot of studying. That's a lot of reading. That's a lot of references and all this. So, I suggest at least to do both and to get, the understanding in the course on humanities team, and then register on our platform, for sure. And like that as well, you'll stay updated to what is being published and when it's being published. And then if people can become members of our nonprofit foundation on that platform of the Resonance Science Foundation, that helps us tremendously in continuing the research efforts and being able to move forward and give people the information they need. It's really critical for us at this time.
Yeah, so check this out, viewers. Nassim is doing such great work, and it's so important. Really, we're getting to ultimate reality here, and this whole ultimate reality where we thought everything was separate and the field is up in the clouds somewhere. Truly, there's just a completely new ultimate reality that we're opening to from this research. So check out these sites that Nassim was just sharing about. Now, Victor brings in, he says, what's the rest of the planet going to think about these discoveries? Won't forbidden science dissolve as forbidden science? And it's funny, Victor, you bring that in. One of the things we do share in the program, we're going to go to a clip here in just a second. We don't have that much more time, but we're going to go to a clip from Nassim's program. But one of the things we do share in the program is that there are many institutions that would be taken apart, that are taken apart by this science. It's power, it's money, it's ego, these things that maintain these old structures, and that's why the science is forbidden in the classroom. In fact, for people that want to go deeper into all of this, you'll see we've created a new masterclass called Forbidden Science, and that wasn't just a marketing thing. Gregg Braden, who's part of this collaboration, insisted we call it that because you can't bring this science into the classroom at the present time because there are too many institutions that would feel they were being hurt by the truth coming out.
Yeah,
so it's unfortunate, but that's
This is about to change, however, because this is formal. It's straight up math. It's straight up physics, and it's based, and it doesn't have any weirdness. You don't have to come up with like very, crazy esoteric concept. All the concepts that are present in there are standard concepts that are in physics. They've just been arranged in the proper order, and basically, so it's about to change. The world is ready for it. I think, you mentioned the stressors that we went through in the last 2 years, on our planet, has really opened people up to like, we have to find solutions. We have to change the way we're doing things. And then the institutions are really opening up. And I think it's a perfect time for this knowledge to emerge.
Yeah, it is truly. I mean, everybody knows we need to pivot. Even in the mainstream, we know we've got to pivot. We're not on a course that is survivable for future generations. And that's what this work is addressing. It's a roadmap. It's a user's guide, which is, as Nassim's team describes it, to what the universe is, how it works. And then we can harness the whole power of the universe where we take advantage of this research. Let's go take a quick look at this is about a 4-minute clip. Nassim, can you go a few minutes over, or are you on a right at?
Sure. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you. We won't go too much over. So let's go to a clip. I want you to see a little more of this program that we just developed with Nassim Haramein and Gregg Braden. We're going to go to the clip right now.
Since the beginning of time,
ancient civilization and humanity has been wondering about the nature of reality. This series is going to be an exploration of those thoughts throughout the ages and the modern interpretation of these thoughts and the resolution of these understandings to modern physics. When we think about the nature of reality in terms of the ancient knowledge and philosophy, we come to something very common in many cultures all around the world. And that is that there's a fundamental field of information, a fundamental field of energy, which can be described as information in modern physics, as there is a relationship between information and energy. This fundamental field of energy being the source of everything we see in our reality, including ourselves and the consciousness that animates it. This is something that is found in many different cultures around the world. It's called different names in these different cultures, but it has similar fundamental concepts. And it's called mana in some civilizations. It's called prana or chi in others. This is a fundamental concept that eventually finds its way all the way to the time of Maxwell and the writing of electromagnetic equations. So it spends a very large amount of time and is described in many different ways at one point or another in history. That is, it's described in later history, for instance, as an ether, some kind of prevailing fluid at the time, not described as a superfluid, but quantitatively described as a fluid, and is the properties of space itself. Now, the concept that space has something in it, that it's not empty, might sound unusual or alien to most of your experience, because it seems like there's nothing in the space. We know there's air, that's one thing, but if you were in space, in the universe space, the space seems empty, or there's very little amount of particles in it. Although even between galaxies, particles are only centimeters apart. So that's the density of the vacuum between galaxies, which is the highest vacuum we know of, which is much higher than the vacuum that we can create in a chamber on Earth. But there's more than particles in this field, because you could ask, what is a particle in the first place, which is what we're trying to understand here, is the nature of reality.
Okay, and that so there's a sister program. So this secretscientificdiscoveries.com is where you sign up for this 60-minute program with Nassim that's airing next Tuesday, and that just aired last night with Gregg. You're going to get both of those. And then the sister program for those that want to go deeper and really come down into the fullness of the science and the implications, the applications for this science in our daily life, is this Forbidden Science program. You'll learn about it through Secret Scientific Discoveries, this program that we're airing right now. That was a clip from that program, and that was shot right there in Nassim's lab in Southern California. So, I don't want to keep us much longer. We've gone over. Let me just share there are tons of questions here. So thank you, viewers. These are, I think, Humanities Stream members. There's some people on your websites that are commenting and coming in with questions too. Nassim. Amy says, "How will our lives change? I'm made of stardust. That is, if I'm understanding this correctly." And of course, Amy, I'm going to throw this question at Nassim. We've been trying to unfurl this here because, I think our lives are going to change in very substantial ways. We're trying to give you little tastes of how our lives might change. But truly, it's like a tarp that we're unfurling, and you know, we really are getting clarity now about the universe and how it works. There's a roadmap, and it's probably gonna take some time to really fully understand the implications of all of this. Though there are many that are very clear right now. Nassim, are there any other things you want to share as we're wrapping up our program?
Sure. One of them has to do with how we think of health and how we think of biology, and where the information flow for biological systems to produce energy and stay coherent. So getting old, for instance, is a result of a reduction in ATP production, or these molecules that are done by the mitochondria. And the mitochondria makes a lot of ATP in a day. If you do nothing in the day, it will recycle, or it will process almost your body weight in ATP. That's remarkable. If you run a marathon that day, you will process approximately a ton of ATP that day. And getting old is a reduction of the ATP production in your body. And what happens is the cell starts making errors when it duplicates, and you know, your body starts falling apart. And basically, from this understanding of the source of charge and the source of energy coming from the Planck field through the atomic structure into the biological structure, we have already a roadmap to how to couple with the field at the biological level, so it doesn't decohere as much, so that there's not so much entropy. And that would mean that cells could live for a really long time, or almost ever, you know, meaning that you would maintain coherency. And, you know, there, people might say, oh, are you talking about, you know, immortality? And that might be I mean, even if we just got 200 years instead of 100 years, would be nice. And immortality is not out of the question. We have examples of immortality on our planet. There's animals. If you look up on Google, immortal animals, there's animals on our planet that don't die. Cells, biological cells, have been shown, even in laboratory, that they can live forever if they're given the right environment. So, so this is a possibility. Now imagine, I don't know about you guys, but I'm in my 50s, and I know that I'm just actually starting to get the wisdom that I should have, you know, to function in the world. I'm just starting to getting it. So our lives are so short. So then imagine if we could extend our life significantly. We've already done that in our evolution. We've gone from like life expectancies of 30 and 40 years old to like 80 years old for most countries in the world right now. But we could, if we extend that to like maybe 150 to 200 years old to 300 years old, imagine the wisdom of our society, as we would have, you know, people that have this level of awareness and wisdom in our world. You know, probably our political leaders would lead a little differently, and so on. And so those are like just one thing I can think of like the impact of understanding this level of physics and the way the universe functions at a deeper level.
If you'd like to receive all of our new podcast episodes, please click on the subscribe button. To find out more about Humanities Team transformational education programs and about how you can help support our mission, please visit us online at humanitiesteam.org, where you can also sign up for our email list so we can let you know about our free online events and other news about what we're up to each week. And again, if you enjoyed this podcast, please leave us a review. Thank you.